Warning: the following video presentation contains scenes of extreme deliciousness. Failure to either eat first or bring a snack to consume during the presentation could result in wanting to lick the screen or in some way act the fool. Ain't nobody want that. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, boys and ghouls. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK.
Hey everybody! How are we doing today? See, the mic should not... Okay, good. The mic's not muted. Should be able to hear me just fine. Welcome, McFace Stab. I see Lumpy Pickle is here. On the Soldiers of Giants is driving. How's it going, buddy? Let's see. Avocado Green KitchenAid is here.
It's not coming through. Oh, there it is.
You're lagging behind. That's why.
I'm a lagger.
Backseat streamer going on here. Oh, wait. There we go. Now we can actually, read stuff, and I'm not completely blown out up here from lighting. So yeah, welcome everybody. Happy Saturday or Sunday, depending on what part of the world you're in. Yeah, so things are going pretty good. I'm not sure if anybody noticed in the intro reel, but I cut in a clip of the chicken pot and put that in. So I'm trying to keep that updated as new things are done. So that's been fun. But yeah, so it's been the week is over. We're at the weekend. Kind of relaxed a little bit, other than, cleaning and all the other stuff that one takes care of on Saturdays or whatever. But today, we're making spam musubi. And it is purely because, I think it was would have been Thursday night. Mr. Nick Miller was streaming, and, we're just hanging out, no big deal. And he straight up calls me out and asks me what I think about spam. And I said, I like it. I like it a lot. And I think he was a little... And... She's gonna get the squirt bottle, I swear. But I was honest about it. I think he was a little taken aback. Surprised that I would be into spam, but it's true. I am. I came into it probably in my teenage years, I think. When I remember first having it and actually really liking it. It was on a backpacking trip. Somebody had brought it along, and we had slices of it, and it just really hit the spot. And so from that point, it was like, oh, okay, cool. I can't say I really revisited it until, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, when somebody brought or suggested making spam musubi. I thought, what is this? But okay, I'll give it a shot. At that point, it was game over. I'm a Spam fan. You're right, Lumpy Pickle. Regular Spam is quite salty. That's part of its, what helps it keep for as long as it does. It's sort of necessary. But I know what some people will do with the regular Spam is after slicing it, they'll actually soak it in water to kind of take some of the salt out of it by doing it that way. But you can get this low sodium Spam, you can get kind of the Spam light. And then of course, there's any number of variations on Spam, most of which you don't really see here in mainland USA, but there are places that will carry some of the specialty flavors like hickory smoke, teriyaki, turkey, and my personal favorite, bacon Spam. This is my favorite Spam of all the Spams, and if I can find it, I usually grab a case of it at a time, because even though it'll have on the bottom like a best buy date, it has actually been shown that that is not the be-all end-all date. That at that point it will not self-destruct, it will not give you botulism, because it already is a sealed container. I mean, unless of course it starts bulging. If it starts bulging, then you need to worry. But for the most part, it'll keep for a very long time, and there's actually groups of people that age it well beyond sort of their best buy date, and they'll eat it aged, which from what I understand is actually really good, and I would love to try that at some point. But smoked Spam is fucking delicious too. I don't recall your bulging. Do you need to work? I'm bulging too, Lumpy Pickle, but I don't know if that's necessarily a reason for concern. If it's more so than normal, then, consult your physician. But if the can is bulging, then yes, because it just means that there's something is producing gas in there, and we don't necessarily want that in a canned good. In us, it's a totally natural process, and it just happens. But there we are. It is kind of interesting, just sort of the history of Spam and why it's as popular as it is in Hawaii. And really, it comes down to like World War II, and specifically their ability to grow the food that they need to sustain the population, and the fact that this is able to be shipped, stored. Were you around yesterday when we named G Money's biceps? No, I was not, Lumpy Pickle. I was not there for that. I think I would have remembered it. But because it was able to be shipped and they were able to keep it on hand, it was something that, helped the islanders eat. And it became just a part of their culture. And that's why more Spam is consumed there per capita than I think anywhere in the world. What is kind of interesting is that not only in Hawaii, but another place that Spam is really popular is Korea. Who'd have thunk, right? However, it goes back to the Korean War, where again, post Korean War, the food rations that were being sent over from the US usually contain things like bags of wheat, which is why Korea has a larger percentage of wheat in their diets than most of the other countries in the area, like China or Japan, because of those food rations. Spam, again, was one of those things that, because it kept and it can be shipped, was sent over and given to the people, and so it became a thing that just became ingrained in their culture. So, humongous. Oh, that is pretty funny. So yeah, Spam is here. Spam's not going away. We like the Spam, and we're going to make MUSUBI with it. So MUSUBI, if really all it is, if you think in your mind's eye what sushi looks like when you get nigiri sushi, which is the fish on top of the rice. So you got that little rice ball, you got the fish on top. Well, musubi is effectively the same thing, where it's a slice of Spam on top of rice. Normally it ends up being pressed on, and a lot of households will just use the can as a mold. They'll usually line it with like plastic wrap or something like that, and then press it, so then you have this perfectly formed slice of Spam on top of rice, and they'll take it for lunch and they'll keep it on them kind of all day. Or you can get yourself a press. So I actually happen to have 2 presses. I do have a question. Hey, Silver Soul Patch, what's going on? Welcome, welcome. So how many flavors have you tried of Spam? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I've had 8 different flavors off the top of my head. So regular Spam, of course, low sodium Spam, Spam Light, turkey Spam, teriyaki Spam, smoked Spam, chorizo Spam, and my favorite, bacon Spam. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I know that there's others. I want to say there's like a jalapeno flavor. There's a whole bunch of them. Obviously, they're all going to be available in Hawaii, just because they're the ones that consume the bulk of it, and so why not? I've been able to find most of the other flavors. Previously, it was at a Japanese market that also had a Hawaiian section, and so they would get in a bunch of different flavors of Spam. That's where I first found out about bacon Spam, was actually there, but then you'd see all these other different flavors there too. So try them, see what you like. There was I think it was the chorizo one that I can't say I was a fan of. I was just like, no, I just didn't care for it. But anyways, presses. So we've got a single press here. I have them in water, and we'll get to why that is in a little bit. But I've got a single press here. So it's a square that a slice will fit into. And all you got to do is put your rice down in it, and you got the little tamper here. And press it down, and boom. Spam musubi. And then I've got this one, which is the double wide version for making double slices and making a really long one. And what's cool about that is you can actually you can make it a whole bunch of different ways, but it allows you a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you present it. So we're going to use them both. We're going to make a couple of different varieties, and like I said in the stream description, there may be an international incident. Hopefully not, but who knows? I make no promises. Just check the biggest supermarket chain here in the UK, Spam and Spam Light. How much variety in your normal store? Yeah. I mean, obviously Spam, there's a super famous Monty Python sketch, but I don't know how much of a massive demand in the UK there is for the different Spam varieties. I suppose you could probably order it like through Amazon or something like that, but yeah, I'm not 100% certain, but normal Spam, like Lumpy Pickle said earlier, it tends to be on the saltier side, so I would recommend, after slicing it, soaking it in water for a bit, just to kind of leach some of that out, and then just be really mindful of what it is that you're having with it. If you're having, like, say, eggs and Spam, for instance, maybe you don't necessarily need to add any salt to it, just because the saltiness of the Spam. So you just got to think about what your final use is of it. So, all right. Hail hydrate. In addition to the Spam musubi today, in order to kind of round things out, I decided to make I'm calling it a miso plus soup. don't think there's too much demand, I'd probably just eat corned beef instead. Most likely. And that's okay. If that's what the food culture is, then it's all good. But I'm calling it miso plus, and the reason why is because, at least here in the States, most of the time when we think of miso soup and you get it at like a sushi restaurant or some other Japanese restaurant, it normally comes out in a little bowl. It's miso soup, and it's got little chunks of tofu, and then it's got that seaweed in it, wakame. Positively charged miso. Yes, exactly. It's got a +1 charge to it, and it bonds really well with the single negative ions. But the reality is that miso soup is consumed in Japan a lot, almost daily. And because of that, they will change it up. They'll add other things to it. They'll make it differently, so then that way they're not becoming bored with the exact same thing all the time. And that's kind of what I want to do with this. We're going to do something a little bit different. It's not going to have the tofu squares, and it's not going to have the wakame like it normally does. But I've got some other things set aside and ready to go. And then when we start working on that, we'll kind of talk about it and work our way through it. Fermented foods are, in fact, really good for you. Speaking of fermented foods, one of the things that I pulled out that we'll have with the Spam MUSUBI is kimchi. This is kimchi that I've made, and I've had it in my fridge, and it's going to be yummy and delicious. So, let's get to making stuff. The first thing that I want to do is I want to talk about the rice for the MUSUBI. So at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see this is my rice cooker. The rice is actually ready to go, but I haven't stirred it yet. And it's because I'm going to actually be moving the rice cooker off of this. It would help if I unlocked it first. Big steam plume. But the rice for this, I'm using a short-grained Japanese strain called Koshihikari, and I'm just stirring it to kind of break it up. There's no salt, there's nothing in it. It was literally just rice and water. I didn't want to go through the whole process of washing it and doing everything else kind of on stream, just because it can get kind of tedious and a little boring. But when it comes to the preparation of this kind of rice, a lot of people kind of have their own little techniques, and what they'll do is usually they'll wash it until the water will run clear, and that is a little ambiguous. For me, it usually involves washing and draining about 3 or 4 times until the water is pretty clear. At that point, I'll let it drain for 30 minutes, then add it to the water and let it sit for 30 minutes so before starting the rice cooker. The other thing is when it comes to the amount of rice versus the amount of water, there's any number of ways that people have said to do it. They say, hey, put in the rice and add enough water to come up to the first, division on your finger. Problem with that is it's not super precise. Everybody's first digit tends to be slightly different in length, so you get different water amounts. If you're measuring it by physical volume, most of the time you see people say a 1-for-1 volume. So it doesn't matter if you're using a measuring cup, the cup that comes with the rice cooker, whatever container that you're using, whatever 1 volume of rice is, then you do 1 volume of water for this type of rice, and you get that. Again, when you're measuring stuff like this in a measuring cup, you tend to get some variation. So what I've kind of gone to is a by weight method, which is 1 to 1.1 rice to water. So I can weigh my rice in whatever amount that it is, multiply that amount by 1.1, and then that's how much water I add to it. So by weight. So I'll do this in grams just because it's way easier that way. So for this, it was like, I think it was 250 grams of rice, I think is what it ended up being. And then, no, sorry, it was 450 grams of rice. Then it was like 495 of water. And that gives me yummy rice. It doesn't have any salt or anything in it, but that's okay, because we don't necessarily want that. This is all stirred up. This is ready to go. I've unplugged the rice cooker just to get it off of the counter, so then that way we've got room to work. But it's going to stay warm in this thing for as long as we need it to. And I normally keep a paddle in just a bowl of water, just so then that way it just picks up the rice nicer. Just a lot easier. Okay, so we got our Spam. Let's work on, let's see. What do we need to do? Well, in terms of vegetable chopping and everything else, most of the stuff that we need to do is actually going to be for the miso soup. So let's switch gears momentarily and we'll talk about that. Miso soup, in its simplest form, is usually a dashi of some form. It could just be straight kombu dashi, which is the giant kelp. It can be like the giant kelp with the bonito shavings. There's a lot of variation. There's a lot of different versions that you can use for the base. In this particular case, what I'm going to do is, instead of the normal giant kelp and the bonito flakes, what I've done is I have soaked 10 grams of kombu in 1 liter of water overnight. And I also threw in a couple of dried shiitake mushrooms to just soak. And this is going to become the base of the miso soup. And then we'll put it on the heat. We'll bring it up to just before it boils. I'll go ahead and pull the giant seaweed out. I'm going to hang on to it because I have other plans for it later on. And then we can also slice up the shiitake mushrooms and throw them back in when the time comes. And that will be the liquid base of the soup. As for everything else that's going into it, obviously we've got our miso, which I have over here. But I'm using, this is from Hikari Miso. This is their Shinzu miso, which I believe is kind of a medium. There's so many different varieties of miso out there. It's really daunting. Most of the time you see like shiro miso or white miso. You see aka miso or kind of a red miso, which is an aged one. There's any number of variations in between. Some are made with pure soybeans, some are made with soybeans and rice, some with soybeans and barley. It is very dizzying. For miso soup, again, you can use effectively whatever you got. They even make some miso that has dashi mixed into it. But I don't generally get that just because I'll make my own dashi. But in this case, I needed a new thing of miso, so I went and grabbed this one from the market. And then, there we go. And this is something that you mix in really at the end, and you don't let it come back up to a boil. It's a nice kind of a smooth miso. And when we go to actually add it in, we'll talk about it a little bit, because there's a number of different philosophies on how to add it. But once you add the miso back in, you should never bring it to a boil, because it'll just break it down, and you don't want that. It's better if you have it like a bare simmer, or like really just the heat's on low and it's not boiling. That's really the best way to kind of hold it for however amount of time. But back to the vegetation. got a few things that I figured we'd throw in. A couple of Napa cabbage leaves that were so good that the bugs decided they needed to take a bite too. And that's okay because I'm not a restaurant, and I'm okay with that. Some carrot, some onion. I've got some oyster mushrooms. I'm not going to use all of those oyster mushrooms, but we're going to add some oyster mushrooms to this. And what else? Went and picked this out of the garden. This is a Decay. It's just kind of a large green onion that gets used a lot in Korean cuisine, but it'll be really good in this too, and we'll go ahead and add it to the soup. And the idea is once the soup itself actually comes up to kind of a boil, and we'll turn it down to a simmer, we'll throw the vegetables in the order that they need to be done in. So the ones that need the longest amount of time to cook will go in first, and then things like the green bits of the Napa cabbage will go in last because they don't require very much time to cook itself. But we'll get all that stuff prepped up. Oh, and as a bonus, I decided, because I can, that I wanted to do it kind of extra cute. Just, I don't know why, I kind of felt like it. So I have these little punches. This one's in the shape of a cherry blossom. It's kind of a small one. So I figured, like, out of the onions and the carrot and the white ribs of the Napa cabbage, I'll punch out the shapes so we have little cherry blossoms in the soup. So I thought that would be kind of fun, and I'll do that. But I'm going to hang on to the scraps for making stock at a later point in time. So let's get started on that stuff. All right, Napa cabbage is already washed. Okay. Knife. So these, all I'm gonna do is just trim those bits off and hang on to those for another purpose. I want to kind of take off the light green bits, and then these will just get sliced up to go in. I don't need them to be super small, because these will actually wilt. They'll also go in last since they really don't require very much cooking time. Nope. And I'm not using too much vegetation right now, only because there's not going to be a ton of soup, and it's just me and Mrs. Way, so I'd like to be able to kind of finish it off in one sitting. I don't really want leftovers. MUSUBI, on the other hand, that'll actually keep just fine, so I'm okay if we don't eat everything in a single sitting, because I can always munch on it later tonight or something like that. Okay. So I've got my cool Sakura punch. I haven't used these in a long time. And not quite as well as I'd hoped. Oh well. Okay, a little bit better. because of the ribs that are in there, that's why I'm kind of swirling it around on the cutting board after the fact, just to make sure that it goes all the way through. Yeah, these punches I think I picked up at a... It wasn't a Daiso. It was a Marukai 99-cent store, I think is what it was. And their little punches meant for, like bento boxes for lunches and things like that. And I think I picked up the set that these came in for probably $1 or $2. It really wasn't very much. So I've had them for a long time. Spits. Anybody got any fun plans for this weekend? I don't. I'm pretty boring that way. Oh, right in the bowl. That's not fun. And it's going quick. It's not digging into my phone. Hey, Accidental Chaos, what's going on? Ooh. I've been there with the whole battery issue. It is not fun. I do not recommend it. Is that plastic? Oh, it is plastic that's coming up. What on earth? I'll have to use a rinse after the fact. Yeah, I had that issue. When was this? I think it was January or something like that, where I went to leave work and my car wouldn't start because it wouldn't turn over. I got a jump and started to pull out. Then the car died again. And it was so bad, in fact, that the car wouldn't even shift back into gear because there wasn't enough power to shift the car from reverse into neutral, which I thought was kind of interesting. It ended up being not only the battery, but the alternator. So that was not a fun day, especially since in order to get over to the place just to get the battery changed, it was... I think I had to be jumped like 3 times or something like that. Like Mrs. Hueso actually had to jump me in the parking lot of the place in order to get over to where I can get the battery. That was an experience. And then they come back with saying, "Oh yeah, not only is the battery dead, but your alternator's dead." And I was like, "Oh, joyous!" So I got to learn how to change an alternator that day. That was Actually, nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be, because the alternator in my car is like right up top, so it was actually pretty easy to change, which was kind of nice. But I also feel you on the whole glasses thing. Oh wow, that kind of tore up the surface of the cutting board. Huh. Go figure. I'm gonna go give these some rinse real quick. But oh man. Yeah, not being able to see is the worst, and I absolutely hate it. I mean, I've worn glasses since I think it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore years of high school. I knew I needed them earlier than that, but that was just kind of the way things worked out with the insurance at the time and everything else. But I've been in glasses ever since. Not a fan of contacts just because the whole thing on my eye, and I'm not a fan of that. Okay, carrot time. Let's do these in here. Keep these carrot peelings. And then I will wash all these later and then freeze them when the time comes, and then we can make a vegetable stock. So let's. Hopefully. I was hoping to make some blossoms out of this, but I don't think the carrot is quite big. There might be a couple of these that are just big enough. Let's see. There we go. Oh, that worked out. But check it. Oop. That turned out real good. That makes me happy. Okay. So it looks like I can with some of these. So some of these I will, some of these I won't. Carrots, please. This likes being cut into these shapes. Our Korean student used to say, "Nice." Full up. Okay. Got our blossoms all ready to go. Alright. Cut some onion for this. Slice up that depa, which we'll actually put in towards the beginning, since it's definitely heavier walled than your normal scallion, and so we wanted to simmer for longer. thinking we'll only need to put a quarter of this. Good. Hang on to something else. Okay. Easier consumption than ever sliced up pretty thin. That is really cool. And last but not least, oyster mushrooms. So, when it comes to working with mushrooms like these, hey, Drumlord's here, and Beef, and Nate the Great is here. Oh, Beef rated. Hey, thanks, Beef. Oh, Drumlord followed, and so did Nate the Great. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. M. Night Spam Llama Hamma Ding Dong. Nice. Saucy, you're not spam, you're a Vienna sauce. Welcome, Saucy, and Bethulu, and Drumlord, and Nate the Great. Yeah, we're making Spam MUSUBI just to show Nick Miller that spam is good. So, yeah, howdy, buddy. So we're just talking about, these are some oyster mushrooms that I picked up. When it comes to kind of working with them, generally they're not big fans of metal in terms of cutting them up. They tend to react with them, and so most of the time it's kind of the best practice to just tear them by hand. And that's all I'm doing here is some of the bigger ones I'm tearing in half. And these will make for a good soup. I will trim off the end bits, but then we hang on to those because, well, they will turn into stock for soup. Everything is soup. So they aren't metal fans. I love, yes, fried spam is good. Spam MUSUBI, I think, is better. Haven't made it in a while, but I am a big fan of it. And I'm using bacon spam because this is my favorite flavor of spam, and so this is the one we're using. Oh, okay, no, of course, gonna call you out. Oh, hi, puppy. Why are you whining, little girl? Alright, so our vegetation is ready for the miso soup. That is good to go. And that is now taken care of. Next thing we need to cut up is the kimchi. And I think before we get to the kimchi, since I can cut this Well, I don't really need a cutting board for it. We're going to cut the Spam. And yes, I have a Spam slicer. It's true. It is literally a Spam slicer. I picked it up. It was probably $3 or $4 when I bought it. But yeah, our Korean student loved it because he had never seen one before. But yeah, we did end up buying him one for Christmas. So, hey! Oh, Nick Miller. I'm about to prove to you that God does in fact live. So, there we go. Bacon Spam for the win. I'm just saying. This is the Spam to get. Alright. You know, it's funny. Our Korean student, when he would use the slicer, he would put it on this way and get kind of these thinner slices. But it's really meant to be used this way in order to get the even slices. And I'll do it this way just so then that way kind of camera can see everything. And I've got it pushed over to one side so then that way this particular wire boom. Sliced Spam. Perfect slices. That's what we want. And we're going to fry that up and then make a sauce to go with it because, quite frankly, you got to have the musubi with the sauce. And the sauce is like a very basic teriyaki, but in this case, the one that I'm making is going to be a little bit of oyster sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, and then brown sugar. And then we're going to just let them chill in that sauce until we're ready to actually start assembly. But I want to get this rinsed. Alright. Okay, that is ready to go. Spam is sliced and ready to go. That's going to end up going into the frying pan, so this stuff I can actually move. And bust out the red cutting board. Why? Because the red cutting board is the cutting board I use to chop up kimchi. So then that way, the red from the kimchi doesn't stain up, you know, a pristine white board. That was the pro tip that I got from a Korean. So I'll use a red cutting board for cutting kimchi. Alright. So I don't need a heck of a lot. So I've got kind of the tail end of kimchi half here. So I'm probably just going to slice off some of that and chop it up. And then we will use it in one of the variations of the MUSUBI. Yeah. Thought I know. Who's running this shit? Alright, I am. I'm actually going to hang on to these just because these tend to be really good chopped up and put into soup. I'm not going to put them into the miso soup because they would just overpower what we got going on in there. Alright. That set to go. I just want to chop this up kind of fine. Principal kimchi chopping is done. I believe at this point, it also means that basic prep work. So now we can start actually making something instead of talking about it, prepping. For the musubi, I just brought this over just to kind of get it out of the way. You can use sushi nori, the seaweed wrap for sushi, or in this case I got laver for gimbap, which is the Korean version. They just happen to have it where it was at and the price was right, and since gimbap is literally Korean sushi but with like a lot of vegetables and stuff, this is going to work fantastically for the musubi. So I just wanted to bring that over, and let's see. Got that. That is there. Get rid of that. I will need that. But at this point in time, I think we are ready to start making the miso soup, since that's going to take. I'll bring over the big boy for this. That. Put it right there. So then that way, this guy doesn't completely and utterly blow the circuit. Because that would suck. Miso's there. We got that. And let's. Okay. That is now on. It's thinking. It's thinking. Still thinking. Alright. Let's pour that in. Alright. So that should come up to a simmer pretty quick. So if, in case you weren't here earlier, what happened was this was a liter of water that I put 10 grams of kombu and a couple of dried shiitake mushrooms in last night and let them soak overnight. And so now we're going to bring this up to temp, and right before it boils, we're going to pull out the kombu, so then that way it doesn't add any additional bitterness. And then we'll turn it down to kind of a simmer and start adding in our stuff in order to make sure that this is ready to go. And clearly I'm missing some jokes. Shifting some of the dots you play on bass around. Oh, that should be funny. If anyone else made this, I wouldn't try it, but I trust my taste buds of attack design. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I will admit, the first time that I had Spam Musubi, I was skeptical. But I said, okay, you know what? This was, it was a gentleman from Hawaii that made it, and he swore by it. So I said, okay. And it became love at first bite. Because it was really good. Jake would totally steal the musubi and then steal your chair and make you move. Because that's just how Jake rolls. Jake is a cat, by the way. I like you and I trust you, but no. That's pretty funny. Mm. You're flying back home, what, Monday, Nick? Or is it tomorrow that you're... No. It's like today or tomorrow you're flying home. Monday night, okay. And then you head out on the road, not coming back up to the Pacific Northwest. I blame your tour managers for that. Whoever they are. I'm sure they're very nice. Yeah, Vegas, and I think Colorado Springs might actually be... It's like Colorado Springs or Denver. I thought there was a Colorado date, and I think that was like the closest that you were coming back up here, which was strange. And it's weird. There's been a number of other tours that I've seen where it's like, oh, I'd like to see these guys. But it's sure enough, they like come up, and then they completely skip Oregon and Washington. So, okay. And yet Korn is coming to, like they're not playing in Portland, they're playing up in Ridgefield, which is about 15, 20 minutes north of Portland, which is really odd. They don't want that rain. Ooh, we're getting steam. That's what we want. Actually, some random ones for sure. A markets, B markets. Yeah, no, I completely understand that idea because, I mean, obviously the market in Los Angeles is much bigger than Des Moines, Iowa, for instance. And so I completely understand. You got to go where there's demand, where you think you're able to sell the tickets, because it's business, and the whole idea is that you're getting paid for, you know, exhibiting your talents. So I totally get it. Just make sure to buy merch, people. That's really how the bands make their money. So when you buy their merch. It's not album sales. It's not even ticket sales. It's merch. You buy their merch, that's what puts money in their pocket. Just saying. Let's see, what was the flow chart that we figured out, I don't know, this was like 20 some odd years ago, is that the album is really an advertisement for the concert, and the concert is the advertisement for the merch. And the merch is really where the bands make their money. And so if you really want to support a band, if you really love them, yes, of course, buy their music, because they need to be, you know, compensated for their artistic endeavors. But buy their merch. Okay, we are at a boil. Hanging on to this kombu now, because I will probably dry that out and crumble it up and use it in something. Not sure what. Alright, let's add our heavy veg. That's going to require the most amount of time. I have not added any salt or anything to this because, well, the kombu, and yeah. So this will just need to simmer for, I don't know, a few minutes. And then we'll throw in the rest of the Napa cabbage, the leaf portions of it. Already smells really good. And then the miso's got plenty of salt in it too. You can make a wallet out of kombu if you need be also. You know, you probably can. Interesting thing, Lumpy Pickle. So there's a number of different varieties of giant sea kelp around the world. There's obviously the giant kelp forests off of the coast of California. And I have heard of people that have tried harvesting it and drying it in order to have kombu from the West Coast, which is really kind of interesting. I would love to get a hold of it and try it sometime. Well, no. You're talking about the stuff from when we went to the coast, right? No, that was different stuff. So, yeah, I tried making it with some giant kelp that had washed up off of the Oregon coast. We took a day trip out there with our Korean student, and while we were down on the water, it's like, oh, here's this giant kelp coming up, and so I'm like, well, let's give it a shot. So I brought it home, rinsed it, I don't know how many times to get all the sand off of it and everything else. I hung it out to air dry for a couple of days. When it was nice and dry and kind of crispy, I tried making dashi with it. Just to see, you know, what would happen. I wasn't terribly impressed. That's kind of the nice way to put it. I wasn't terribly impressed. And you know what? It didn't cost me anything, so it was like, hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained, you know? I think we can turn the heat up just a little bit. There we go. Got some bubbling. But it smells awesome. And then once this is ready, I'm just going to turn it on low to kind of keep it warm. And we'll get to work on the musubi, because it's going to be fun and it's going to be interesting. How are we doing? It's still a little thing. Alright, so I'm thinking we'll leave that for a few minutes, and in the meantime, so we got that going on. Yeah, that'll be good for a couple of minutes. Let's go get the musubi going. Or the spam going, at least. Alright. Some recipes will say, hey, add some oil to the pan before you fry up your spam. I've never felt the need to do that, because the spam will render enough that I don't need to really concern myself with it. But I want this to be nice and crispy. And so we're going to let that kind of go. When the spam is done, we'll pull it and then make the sauce in the pan. And I'll actually get the stuff out for that now. Just kind of have it in. And this. So just for reference, I've got a Japanese soy sauce. Got oyster sauce here and brown sugar. The proportions for the sauce are actually pretty easy. It's equal parts soy sauce and oyster sauce, and then double the amount, or equal to the amount of oyster plus soy sauce. Do that in sugar. So we'll put that into the pan, cook it up that way, and then add the spam back into it to kind of get it coated and everything, and then we'll let it chill in that pan. And this... Okay. I think we are at a point. Let's try that real quick. Okay. Yeah, we're at a point where we can add that. And then that'll wilt down and... Okay. In the meantime, so I'm going to get some miso into this bowl. maybe a little bit more. Okay. So I got my miso in the bowl here. And when we're ready to go, I'm going to ladle off some of the soup into here just to kind of stir it up and get it broken up before adding it back to the pot itself. And these things can go into the fridge. And back to the stove. Probably way easier. Alright, starting to get a little bit of color on there. Which is what we want. Oh my gosh, that's real good. It's good now?
Yeah, it's better, but it's still a little blown
Still a little blown out?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Soup is looking pretty good. Let's test a carrot real quick. Carrot overboard. Good. Okay. Alright, that is way down. That is good. What am I looking for? Doing all right. Just needed to check the spam to make sure it ain't burning, because burnt spam is not good. Alright. We'll add our soup in there. Alright. Let's get this mixed up. So, you'll see some videos where what they'll do is, depending on the type of miso that they're using, like if it's got like big chunks of soybeans in it, they'll actually have like a little sieve down in the soup and sieve the miso into the soup itself, so then that way there aren't any chunkies or anything like that. I like the chunkies personally. Let's get a little bit more soup in there. Very good. So that is now just chilling. It's on really low heat, so then that way it doesn't come to a boil, but it'll stay nice and warm, which is exactly what we want. Let's give it a taste real quick. Oh, that's tasty. Oh yeah, that's really nice. That'll be really, really good with the musubi. So I'm actually just going to push this off to the side because we're going to need this end of the counter in order to assemble the musubi. So I'll just push that there. Let's go. Thank you. Well, when you're turning little things like this, sometimes it's just easier to use a fork. Okay. So these are looking... Okay. A couple of them are a little bit over. That's alright. I'll still eat them. But we've got some good color on them. So let's pull these out real quick. Okay, heat is off, so let's add a bit of soy sauce,
Glazing the pan. Oyster sauce.
then brown sugar. Because this sauce should be pretty sweet. Because that's what you want. You want it to be kind of a sweet sauce. Alright, let's turn this back on. Just so that way it comes together. Tastes like it needs a little bit more sugar. Yeah, this is the dark brown sugar. You can use just straight up like granulated sugar if you want. I tend to like the flavor of brown sugar with this better, personally. There we go. A little sweet, a little salty. Kind of like meat. Really, we just want to get these exposed. Spam is chilling. Spam is good. All right. So we're going to do a little bit extra. I'm going to lightly cook some kimchi. With this, all I'm wanting to do is kind of dry it out a little bit, because in one version that I'm going to make, I want to stir in the kimchi into the rice. There's no oil or anything in there because, like I said, I'm just trying to dry this out a little bit. I don't want this to be wet going into the musubi. The other thing I'm going to do, because this is actually a really cool addition that I like, is fried egg. But I'm going to scramble the egg and kind of get it to be kind of a flat sheet, so then that way we can cut it to size and then add a layer to the musubi itself. So Spam and eggs, because it's a great combo. Alright, that is dried out. Okay, so there's kimchi. We'll give that a quick wipe. Is it? Maybe. It's hard to say. Alright. That's already hot. I'm just cracking a couple of eggs and scrambling them up real quick. Alright. Oh. Tiny bit of oil. I don't need very much. Maybe a little more. What I should get one of these days is one of those Japanese egg pans for that they use to make kind of the egg omelets for sushi. I put a little bit of oil.
It's kind of a bummer it's blown out. I wonder if it closes this window, maybe you could see better.
Maybe.
Maybe you can see it better. Probably not.
Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Okay, let's see if we can give this a quick flip.
No.
alright with it being flat on one side like that. Makes it a little bit easier. That's going to do some carryover cookings. Okay. Got our egg. Got a bit of kimchi. We got the Spam. Alright. We got our presses here. We've got our gimbap for this. Alright, so that is ready to go. I'm actually going to move this. I'm going to move the miso soup over to the stove so then that way I can get this off the counter and not have the fan blowing. Alright, so that's on the lowest of flames. It's like, hey, the surface is hot. I'm well aware, thank you. Well, in this particular case, this laver for gimbap is made like the nori for sushi, so it's a lot more even. If you look at the individual sheets, it's somewhat consistent all the way through. It's got the markings like it was made for making sushi rolls, whereas the sheets of Korean laver that you normally get are a lot looser. It's also a different variety just because Japan and Korea. Hey, Rick Samurai, what's going on, man? Who else did I miss coming in? Yeah, burnt Spam is generally not good. Thankfully, we got some, dark brown caramelization on there, but it's not burnt, so we're good to go there. Okay. Time for the main event. Oh. So when it comes to the assembly of MUSUBI, it generally goes rice, Spam, but in between the Spam, a lot of times you'll put like a rice seasoning or a furikake, as it's usually called. I just happen to have this kimchi flavored one, and so that's what I'm going to use to kind of season the rice. You'll see some people will just leave it as that and then wrap a little bit of the seaweed around it. Others will put more rice on top and then wrap the entire thing in the seaweed. I personally prefer it the second way, where it's like a little sandwich. That's just kind of my preferred. That's just my preferred way of eating it, personally. So let's see. All right, so there's our sheet, and I'm gonna need to fold this in half because the first one that I'm gonna make, I'm going to use that single press here for that. The reason why I keep it in water is so then that way when I'm working with the rice, it helps the rice not stick. Because after, you're making, I got, 8, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 9 slices of Spam here, right? If you're using it 9 times over and over, rice will have a tendency to stick to it. That's why the trick that I was taught was to put it in water, so then that way you can wash it off and the rice will come off with it. So what I will do is I've got a piece of the seaweed as wide as the mold here because I'm going to wrap the entire thing in it. Then I just get a little bit of water on my hands just because it's easier to work with the rice that way, because it's a hands-on kind of situation. And get it in there, press it down, and dunk that back in water. And we'll get the MUSUBI slice, but first, a little bit of the seasoning. Drop that slice in there. A little bit more rice. You just want to kind of even it out, so then that way it's a nice even press. And then it's just lift the mold off. There's that. That goes back in the water. I'm making many. And in theory, you're going to come in here and make one too.
Woo! Everyone wants to laugh.
So, add a little bit of water on that just to kind of help it stick. And then, boom. That's our first Spam MUSUBI right there. Oh, so it's easier to see?
Yeah, because we really just see your hand.
Gotcha. So, what I'm doing is I'm dunking my knife here into the water and then letting the water kind of run down the edge of the blade. So then that way it slices, or at least in theory it slices a little bit cleaner and doesn't stick. I said in theory. But, boom. And that one looks like the rice on top wasn't quite as even, but that's okay, because... But who cares? We're eating. So we've got MUSUBI number 1 down. Okay. Let's try a double wide. I'll do it this way. And for this, we'll use an entire sheet. All right. We'll lay that down. Let's hit even more rice. Like I said, it's been a little while since I've made this. But okay. Good. Add some press. Add a little bit of the seasoning. It's so there's any number of rice seasonings out there that it's kind of falls under the umbrella of furikake, as it's called. But there's a whole bunch of different flavors. I just happen to have the kimchi one. So now I'm thinking let's add some egg. So I want a piece that's about as wide as the crust here. Let's drop that in. Now let's grab a couple of slices of Spam. Drop that in. Yes, Furikake. Furikake. Alright. A little bit of rice. Should have wet my hands again. There. Let's press this up again. Got a bit of a chunky boy there. That's okay. Boom. Chunky boy. Alright. So for this one, I'm going to go in half. Then I think I'm going to do this one on the bias, meaning at an angle. So then that way, I'm just doing a 45-degree angle kind of down through the center point of it. There we go. Then that way we can stand them on end and have these little wedges. Wedge. Ta-da! More MUSUBI. I am biased to the bias. It's true. Because it just kind of looks cooler on this, at this angle, in my opinion. Okay, so now we've done a shorty, we've done a long one with egg. Now, could sushi rice be used, meaning the vinegared rice? Absolutely. I have made it with sushi rice before, and it is fantastic that way. Most of the time, like in most households that make them on regularly, they usually don't. But you can absolutely do it with sushi rice, and it's fantastic that way. But, no, it's not that it's more expensive. It's just it's a bit more time consuming to make the sushi rice, because then you got to take it out of the cooker. You got to get it into your, your wooden bin. You got to cool it down while adding the seasoned vinegar to it and mix it up. And it's a process to make that sushi rice. Whereas this is, I just turn the rice over. Yeah. Well, this rice is naturally sticky. That's just the species of it, the golden koshihikari. And so, yeah, it's naturally like that. Okay. I think it is time to possibly cause an international incident. But I don't think so personally. For a couple of reasons. Because kimchi is eaten in Hawaii quite a bit. There's a fair amount of Korean influence in Hawaii, and Koreans love Spam. Koreans love kimchi. So this really shouldn't be that big of a deal. However, I can see how there would be some purists that could take offense to this. No offense is intended. It's just going to be delicious. And I'm making it, you're not. So there we go. All right. Because I don't want a ton of kimchi in this. I just need a little bit of it. And then we'll mix in that rice. I'm thinking mix in that stuff now. So then that way we've got kimchi seasoned rice that we'll be using to make that MUSUBI. I wouldn't really call it that. No. Merkin? Well, if it was Merkin, it'd be like a cheeseburger MUSUBI or something like that, or pizza MUSUBI. I don't know. Okay. I think that is going to work for our purposes. And then I'm thinking we need to add some egg to this guy too. Okay. We'll bust out that again. And do a single one on this. I'm going to forego the second layer of rice. And I'm going to make this rice layer a little bit thicker. Now, add that egg. Grab a slice of spam. Alright. And since I'm not going to put rice on top, I'll just do that. Take that up. Boom. Kimchi, rice, egg, and spam. Actually, no. Beauty shot. Whoop. Beauty shot. Yes, I am in fact taking beauty shots to update the intro reel again. Okay, so I've made 3 different musubi here. I am feeling kind of hungry, but I also kind of feel like Mrs. Weso should get in on the action here.
Because we all want a good laugh.
Because we all want a really good laugh. All right, I'm gonna be here to talk you through it. So yeah, throw up some emotes in chat if you would be so kind to cheer on Mrs. Weso.
I did just watch you.
You did just watch me, but to the best of my recollection, you have never made musubi before. So
this is the first time I've watched you make it.
This is, yeah, okay. So this is, I did not realize that. I thought maybe she had watched me make it previously. There we go.
Because usually you would make it in the middle of the night and I'd wake up and it was ready to go.
Or something like that. So, okay. Hey, thanks, Accidental Chaos. I just saw your message. So, have a good one, man. Take care. But, okay, so Mrs. Weso, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. So, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you got this. All right, so what do we do first?
Dip our hands in the water.
Okay. And what else?
Oh, we need a singing.
Yeah. What else?
Rice.
Yes.
Oh, we need this.
Yes. So you're okay. So you're gonna see how there's. If you look at the surface of it, you see how there's these big lines.
Yeah. Can we?
We're gonna fold it in half, perpendicular to it. Does that make sense?
This way.
Yes.
I could do some math. Okay.
And then go ahead and pull the pieces apart.
I wanted to do like the little
There you go.
strip. One long little strip around.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, do that one in half.
One more time?
Yep.
What if I'd halved it the other way?
Bum, bum,
Bum, bum, bum, bum.
bum.
Here. Oh, it's like paper.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
You lay it down.
Do it shiny side up.
Oh, shiny side up.
Okay. All right.
Boom.
Got it down. Good job.
My hands are dry.
Okay.
Now we need some rice.
Yep.
Boop. Okay, we should do it this way so you can see it better.
Okay.
Right? And we mash it in.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. It's looking good.
Do I put more or less?
I would put more. Yeah.
Boop.
There you go. That's what the water's for.
That's what the water's for.
Okay.
Okay.
You're pressing it. Yeah.
How do you know how far to press?
You'll see, if you look at the top, when you're pressing down on it, you'll see all the rice like come up and stick to the top of it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like when you put it on top of the rice the first time, you'll see like where the gaps and everything are. But when you push it down, the surface of the rice will look really even. Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to put any rice seasoning?
Furikake.
Furikake.
I'm sure.
Okay. Sprinkle on.
Is there other options?
This is just the one that I happen to have. Okay. Okay.
David, sorry, DK, so whatever his name is today, he's always said, season it up really high.
Yeah, but we're aiming for a specific area.
So it spreads evenly. I'm gonna do it like this.
Okay.
So then I can control what I'm doing.
All right, there you go.
There.
Okay. Now what?
Egg.
Okay. There's your egg. If you want to use the entirety of it, you're welcome to. Or just use like a slice.
I was gonna use.
Blah, 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 blah.
Can't do that.
No.
I was gonna use
You
a
can't use that.
measurement. I was gonna measure it. I do have a drafting degree, so it makes me happy to measure. See, look, it fits in there nicely.
Okay.
Do I smash it?
No.
There's a space there, though.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. Because we're going to press it again.
Okay.
That's right. Choose your Spam. Drop it in. Okay. Do you want to put more rice on top?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Spam's not my favorite.
Okay.
I'll eat it. It's good this way, but
It's not your fave.
it's not my favorite.
Okay.
Dip it in the water.
Yeah. Okay. You can just use the press for that.
I'm trying to make my layers even.
Okay.
Unlike some people here, the layers are uneven.
Well, that one doesn't have any rice on top, so it doesn't really matter.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
I'm smashing. I need
Just channel She-Ra and you're good to go.
Roar.
You want to put some more rice? Okay.
Yeah. So my layers are even.
Okay.
There.
I don't know. Lumpy pickle, I do both. I mash it and I smash it. And I press it.
Okay.
All right. You happy with that?
Yes.
Okay.
You're gonna press that harder. Okay.
I was just evening it out because it was
Okay.
a little wonky. Okay, so now push down on this while lifting up with the other hand in order to get the straight up. There you go. See?
Ta-ha!
Ta-da! There you go. And now just wrap it around.
Yeah.
Just no more water. You're good.
I thought it was like puff pastry. You know, the
No,
water's
not
the
quite.
glue.
Well, a little bit, but you don't need a ton.
Look, they're pretty even.
Good job, baby. Good job. Okay. Musubi be done. Let's bust out that soup. Because I'm hungry.
I made MUSUBI last week.
You didn't make Musubi last week.
Nope, last week I made food of some kind, the noodles. What did we make? We made yakisoba.
Are you sure?
No.
Yes, it was yakisoba.
I do have knife skills, I will say that. I was, when I came into the marriage, I was given one tool. This bad boy. This is my knife. It's my training tool. I was not allowed to touch anything else until I could learn to use that properly. Now I can do whatever knife I want.
It's true.
Because I have good knife skills.
All right. Oh, you're just walking away.
Oh, am I supposed
That was funny. I'm sorry, what was that, darling? Could you say that again?
Am I supposed to stay?
Yes, you were, because now it's soup and musubi time.
Mm.
So, would you grab a couple of the Korean spoons?
Yeah. My musubi fell apart.
Did it? It's because you went super thick and only used that small band, but that's okay.
It still tastes good. I like the Spam because it's covered in a sugar. These are Korean soup spoons.
That's the camera that's on right now.
Oh, there we go.
If you want to, okay, hang on. If you want to show it to this one, that is that button.
Okay.
And then that brings up this one. And we can turn the overhead off in order to do the beauty shot of that miso plus soup. And we've got our musubi. So now that we've got that, I'm going to go all in on this kimchi one.
That musubi was excellent. And did you say you were going to put chicken in this or no?
Mm-hmm.
He is talking. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I should have said Pudgy Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
This one's my other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the Spam's really good because it's covered in sugar. If you're still around, Nick.
He is. Yeah.
Sugar makes everything better.
I was thinking about adding chicken to the miso soup, but I opted not to.
You didn't want to cause an international incident?
No, it wasn't because I didn't want to cause an international incident. I'm all about causing those, but then it would have meant having to get out a cutting board, debone the thigh, cut it up, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I just did that. I'm like, we can give it a rest.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, it tastes like if I went and bought it at a store.
Or at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm. A restaurant, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like you know what you're doing. Only it's got bigger chunks, which I like. And it's not clear. Usually at the restaurant, they're clear.
Yeah, but the vegetation's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hang on. Did I get... Oh. I need...
Aww.
We got our little cherry blossom carrot.
I got one.
That's super good. Alright.
It's a nice touch. Would y'all eat Spam musubi? I hated Spam until he made this. Like I said, it's good because it's covered in sugar.
But, yeah, musubi is awesome. I love musubi. Like, it's a great snack. It travels nicely. Like, if I was going on a, like a longer plane flight, I would make this and bring it with me on the plane. And I have. Yeah. Spam musubi, yeah. Doesn't matter what time of day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night, after a concert, whatever. I'm in. So next time I see you, Nick, I'm gonna make some for you.
Hey, that mayo soup was really good.
Right?
And nobody thought that was going to taste good.
Well, see, but I think that's just it, though, is that, I mean, at that point in time, I didn't know Nick. Nick didn't know me. I was literally some internet rando. And he was kind of dragged along for the ride. But now I'm still an internet rando, but he knows me a little bit more. Mm. Mm. Mm.
Well, that's really good. We didn't have lunch today, so.
Yeah, we haven't had lunch, so. Mm.
These are my favorite spoons. Don Yoon's parents gave us this particular pair. But I love it because the spoon, no matter what bowl we use, the spoon will never fall in. And it's got a nice big fat head.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's a little flower.
I got one of the cabbage flowers.
I haven't seen those.
They're white.
I was sleeping during that.
I know. There's one. Yeah. That's right. Right there. See?
Oh, yeah.
You want to show the camera? There you go.
Sorry y'all are not here.
Mm. You'll eat it because you trust me and you're sure it'll be great. But until then, you're going to continue your international campaign for the arrest of anyone producing or distributing spam.
That is fair.
See, now, Nick, I'm just going to have to, like, start sending you spam stuff. Like a spam hat, spam shirt, spam socks,
That's mean.
cans of spam. This is how that's my normal reaction to things like that. It's like, oh, I'm gonna spam you with spam.
You got spammed.
Spam the record. What I really need to get is like a cute. Well, what I should do is get a picture of the can of bacon spam and have a bacon spam stinger instead of my dumpster fire.
I don't know, that dumpster fire is really
Yeah,
cute.
the dumpster fire is really cute. But so is the taco. Mm. Which the taco... There we go. Nope. There we go. Taco stinger. Got me one of them big old mushrooms.
How come yours is cloudy?
Because there's a lot more miso in it than the restaurants.
And that's just because flavor is better and they're trying to conserve money and stuff?
There is that too. Let's go in one of these bad boys. Look at that wedge.
Wedge. I don't know, I'm not a big fan of nori.
Hmm.
It's okay. I mean, I'll eat it for some things, but I don't want it in tons amounts.
Meanwhile, I'm like, if I'm having rice, I need to have lava or nori or something.
Yeah.
Like, I just gotta have it to go with it. I love this stuff. That's really good with the egg.
I like it with the egg a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, so is this guy.
Oh yeah, I'd totally eat nori by itself. But
Are you out? Probably out.
no, I've got some packs up there, and I think I have another one in back. But I have these little packs of Korean laver that are small cut pieces that you can just have with like a meal, as opposed to the bigger sheets like this. But like with this stuff, you can easily crumble it up, and like the used kombu that I have, I'll cut that up, kind of like fry it up a little bit, crush it up with like some sesame seeds and some of this, the laver for the gimbap, and that'll be another rice seasoning. This turned out awesome. I'm very happy with this. Hopefully this has been enjoyable for everybody. If not somewhat traumatizing. But I love this stuff. Thank you everybody for being here. This was fun. I will see everyone next week. If I don't see you in some other stream at some point in time. Thank you for everybody who was active in chat. Thank you to the lurkers. I don't know who you are, but thanks for hanging around. Everybody have a good rest of your weekend. And let's see if this will be agreeable. I'm just curious if this will actually open up for me. Because I'd like to see if there's somebody that we can raid. It looks like Tiny Pio is on. He's playing music. Let's see. It is being disagreeable. Alright. Well, Okonomiyaki. Oh, yeah, dude, the Okonomiyaki. Yeah, the Okonomiyaki and my Okonomiyaki fail at the end of the intro, which makes me laugh. Yeah, this is being disagreeable and not really reacting the way I want it to, so I'm going to go ahead and just say goodbye. At some point, I'll figure out a way to set up a raid, so then that way we can actually go raid other people's channels, because that's always fun. But thank you again, everyone, for being here. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week.
Hello, boys and ghouls. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for Tactical